Our next guest is the outstanding coach at Copiah-Lincoln. He's the longest-term coach. I didn't realize this till I was looking at his bio of any coach in the state of Mississippi. I think, 15 or 16 years, Coach?
Going on 15 years, yes.
Going on 15 years, a winning program there, and the JUCO ranks with Copiah-Lincoln. Glenn Davis joins us. Glenn, we appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, so Jordan Davis, we'll start there. You got a lot of stuff to talk about here, but Jordan Davis, the top 100 player in the country. I think he was in the top 10 weak side defensive ends. Alabama doesn't get him. He goes to you. Kind of take us through how that process works, what you can do as a coach when a guy, doesn't make the academics or whatever the reason, and how that works from your standpoint.
Well, just fortunate, we were able to hear about him and, that it may not work out for him. And so we just tried to start establishing some relationships with him. And his mom being from Mississippi, so there were some people that actually in her family that I actually coached with that we didn't know about until we actually got to talking. And one of my first coaching jobs was with a person that's, I think her dad, their cousins, her dad and his dad were brothers, and so we kind of established a relationship with that way. And then Coach William Jones was recruiting him because that's his position coach, and so I think we kind of hit it off there, and it was just it worked out good for us that we were able to get him here. We had a need for him, and then being able to get a guy that we think is going to be a great player. You can't have enough of those.
Yeah. So is that the way it works? A lot of times for most kids with you when you're recruiting, do you identify some that are JUCO from talent or from academic standpoints, but you've got to kind of keep your ear to the ground for some of the guys like Jordan Davis that you may have to save a spot for?
Yeah, we try to save one, maybe two. Sometimes at the end, in Mississippi we only get 8 out-of-staters total. So those 8 guys that everybody in the league tries to take from those 8 guys out of state need to be guys that are definite Division I players. And we definitely feel that about him. And, he looks like one of the guys that Coach Saban normally signs as a defensive player or as an Alabama signee. He's a big, good looking guy, long arms, and he can really run. And, but we go after guys that we know that are going to be great casualties early, and then we hold some that, in his situation that it may come up short at the end. So, maybe that answers your question there. We do hold some for that.
Yeah, no doubt. I would think you would have to. So he certainly has the look of an edge defender, no doubt. So does Alabama stay in contact with you and say, Coach, this is what we'd like to develop him, or they leave you alone? It's your deal. He's there, and you do what you want.
Well, I had Quan Menzie that played here for me, that played at Alabama on one of the national championship teams. He wasn't a place guy or anything, but normally when guys are that we get them, from another university, we try to do everything we can to get him up there on campus and, so he can stay in constant contact with their coaching staff. And for that, and for the most part, we probably won't hear much from them other than, they want to make sure he comes to some games, and we'll try to make sure we do that and get him up there.
So how well do you know him? I know workouts, I guess, have started. You got some coming up here in a few minutes. And is this the first day he's going to work out with the team, or what's happening?
No, he's actually been here. This is his second week here now.
Okay.
And, so he was here last week for a short week, and then back this week is his first full week. But he's working hard. He's a yes sir, no sir kid, and seems to be good young man. His mom was like I said, being from Mississippi, I think helped us. So she was kind of a little bit familiar with where we are, and like I say, so far, we're extremely, pleased with what we see of him so far as doing what we ask him to do, being in class on time. And so, now it's a new part for him, a new stage in life. He's like all kids at this age, they all got to keep growing up and maturing. And hopefully we'll help, be able to help him do that and get him to where he wants to be in a year and a half from now.
Yeah, and his dad was a military guy. I'm guessing it sounds like you see that influence in him.
I think so too. You can tell from, the yes sir, no sir stuff, and you don't always, you hear that from some kids you don't, but you can tell that's been ingrained in him.
Yeah. So, how do you help him on the academic side? Does he get more special treatment than anybody else, or does he get what he needs, or how does that work balancing with football?
Well, I think the big thing in the community college, junior college level is that most of our classroom settings are the same or smaller than some of the high school settings. So, the thing that I think for us, our administration has been very supportive, and our faculty is as much as supportive as they are. A lot of our tutoring is done actually by our professors, and we don't have the peer tutoring. It's pure faculty tutoring. So the person that teaches the class is the one that's going to be tutoring him. So that
right.
I think that's a big factor that we have. It's a big advantage for us over a lot of our other community colleges in the state. And, we graduate right at 99 to or 100%, every year.
Wow.
And, if one doesn't do it, it's just because he didn't, he either took another job. We've had some that got on tugboats and stuff after the season was over, the semester was over, and didn't finish up that way, or one just don't do it. It's not, if they don't get it done, it's because they didn't try. And,
right.
If they'll work and communicate with the instructor, they're going to push them, and they're going to teach them and coach them and help get them through the classes. And I think that's something that, they understand, the kids are here for a reason, and, they want them to be successful, and, they're not going to give it to them, but they're going to work with them and spend extra time with them to help them get in the right situations.
In the old days, when you went to junior college, you knew you weren't going to be out till you were a junior. Nowadays, we see guys stay a year sometimes and leave. How did that change, and how does that work?
Well, I think the thing that most all of us are doing now is we're bringing our kids in summer, and they're getting 12 hours in the summer. So that's kind of like that spring semester that they're going to miss.
Okay.
Usually we have them a summer, a fall, a spring, another summer, and then they graduate the next fall. So they're able to go through spring training and, get acclimated to the, college. They can go and get in the weight room. They can start learning, getting the playbook. They can go through spring training. And if they haven't mastered all of it by the end of spring training, then they've got summer school where it starts all over again for them. So it's a big advantage for a kid that can graduate in December here and then go over a high school kid. High school kids, most of them don't finish until May or June. So the first time they get to look at a playbook is, when they get there for summer school. A junior college kid, he's already been competing against really good football players, and then be able to get there in that spring semester, he's just a semester ahead.
So as you look at Jordan, without, promises and all that thing, but just to ask a question, do you expect him to be one of those guys that could be ready after this football season to go to Alabama, or it's hard to say, or what would you say about that?
Academically, he'll be here a year and a half. He won't be here leaving in January that I know of. I think he's going to have to be here the summer, fall, spring, summer, and then after next fall, a year from this fall, he'll be ready to go.
Okay, so he sounds like
getting
he'll be one of
the years. Getting one out in a year, I don't know if anybody really doing that.
Yeah, that's very difficult.
Yeah, they got to have 60 hours with a 2.5 to graduate, so it's pretty hard to get 60 hours done in a year.
Yeah. So and he messaged me earlier and told me a lot of schools are already blowing up his phone and stuff, which I'm sure you're used to balancing too, even when they're committed or have signed somewhere. He says he's all in at Bama. That's none of your business necessarily, but how much of that is what you've got to do? Balance these schools where they're kind of already committed or had signed, and then no other school is going to stop talking to him. I guess that's just part of business for you.
Well, the thing that they'll hear from me is that he's an Alabama signee, and I'm not going to be real happy with them communicating with him behind my back. And, I have had to tell people in the past to, don't come back here. Because, you want to put one here, I'll take care of him for you. But don't be messing with my guys that somebody else, that belong to somebody else as far as, Wade Jordan is, or I've got another kid from Memphis that's an Oklahoma signee, and I've got a Mississippi State signee. We try to treat all of those kids in those schools the same. They help us, so I want to make sure that I'm completely loyal to them.
Interesting. That's an interesting take. Finally, let's talk a little bit about JUCO. I think it gets a bad rap. You know about Last Chance U. It was this blow-up series on Netflix, and there was a lot of crazy things on there. And I'm of the opinion reality TV is really non-reality because it's hard to be real when cameras are focused on you all the time. Just how real from what you know of it, if you saw it at all, to what you do and see and live every day at Copiah-Lincoln?
Well, I just know how it is here. What you saw there could be the very, fact, but I just know it's not here, and I know it's not that way at other community colleges in the state. And, our kids don't do some of the things, our coaches don't say some of the things that are said on that show. And, I just think, it kind of displayed us as an entire state as not in a good light. And I know it was something that was good for them and good for the school money-wise, but, I just think it gave the rest of the league kind of a black eye to a degree. And, we have all types of kids. We get kids that are, not great students. We get kids that are 20-something, 30-something ACT kids that, we get all types of kids. Some kids are, when they're coming out of high school, they might be 6'4", 185, and the next thing you know, they're 6'4", 255 that, are late developers. And so, we have all kind of great stories that go through this league that, of kids that, some that come that have been in trouble. They change their lives around. They do good things. And, so it's there's numerous things that kids do that I think this league does a great job of. And I just think that, sometimes it's a shame what the NCAA has tried to do is, like a kid that comes out of junior college has to have an AA degree and a 2.5, where a kid that's a sophomore, say at Alabama, to maintain eligibility, he has to have a certain number of hours, but he only has to have a 1.85. So it's kind of a big discrepancy what the NCAA is trying to do, I think, with junior college athletics or athletes in general. I coached in the SEC for 7 years, so I've kind of seen some of this coming for a long time. I think it's I think sometimes kids need junior college. They're not mature enough to go right into a 4-year school, and they get there and they get engulfed in the numbers, 100-something in a class. They just kind of get lost in the shuffle, and there's some that handle it and don't miss a beat. But I just think there's a lot of things that our system does that I just think it's a great system, and and I think those are things that this entire league has helped kids for years. Be successful and move on and go and do things better for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it really is kind of the SEC of JUCOs. I mean, that league, and it's
unbelievable.
unbelievable.
It's a great league. It's the toughest one out there. I think just by how we've done in bowl games and national championships and all that, I think you can really tell that it's a great league because of all that.
All right, before you go, and for folks listening, Glenn Davis, the head coach of Copiah-Lincoln, he coached Walter Jones, who's from our state, incredible Florida State Seahawks tackle. You coached at North Alabama, 88-91. But as you said, you coached with Jackie Sherrill, Mississippi State, as the running backs coach for 6-7 years.
Yes.
So give me a great Jackie Sherrill story, or maybe it's a story on a player from the SEC, as much as you can on live radio.
Yeah. Well, I guess the one that probably sticks out the most in my mind is we're actually playing Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and we're driving the ball down the field, and I'm signaling plays on the sideline, and Coach Sherrill and I'm subbing my running backs in because I've got a young young junior college running back that's J.J. Johnson, and then I've got who was like 6'2", 240 pounds, and then a kid named Robert Isaac who's like 5'8", 165 pounds. And I'm subbing them in run and pass, and I'm subbing J.J. in on the runs and subbing Robert in on pass pro for pass protection, just to making sure that we don't bust the pass protection. And
right.
Coach Sherrill comes running down the sideline. He says, "Blank, they know what we're doing," and he's got a real shrill voice, and so that goes on about 3 times during this drive. And if we score, this drive is going to kind of put it away. And finally he says it about 2 more times, and he says, "Your ass is fired." And I've been there 6 months. And so after the game, all my players are kind of standing around there by it, and they heard all of it. And so I'm kind of waiting on him to get out of the locker room, because he goes in and does his notes, and he goes and does his radio show.
Right.
So I said, I'm going to go on in there and I said, get this over with. And it just happened that day my locker is next to Coach Sherrill's locker. And so I look in the locker room, and he's still there. So I said, well, let's go on in here and get this shortest tenure at Mississippi State, history of coach gets fired in the ball game. And he's first thing he says, "Congratulations on beating Alabama." And I said, "Coach, I know this one means a lot to you, and congratulations." And we get to talking and laughing, and he don't remember a thing. He don't remember what he said, and I can feel like people were watching over my shoulder, and I look behind us, and there's 3 other offensive coaches. They're all kind of looking around the corner to see if it's safe to come in the locker room or not. And so they finally come on in and it's laughing. But Coach, the reason Coach wrote stuff down during ball games, everybody knows probably the most asked question in Mississippi is what he always wrote down on that piece of paper during games. It was stuff so when he went to his radio show, he could kind of carry on with things that happened during the game. And so I guess that was one of those things he didn't write on his paper that he fired me during that game.